This is the Logitech G915 Tactical Wireless Keyboard. It's an RGB mechanical keyboard that is often used for gaming or just used because you like the feel and look of it. Hi and what's up, welcome back. This is Anthony with Everything Practical, and today we're going to have a look at the Logitech G915 Tactical Wireless Keyboard. But this keyboard isn't your everyday run-of-the-mill keyboard. It's a mechanical keyboard, and likely if you're watching this video you know a little bit what that means. If you don't, I'll go into what it means a little bit later. Now this video will be a review of the keyboard and also my thoughts after a year of using this keyboard. I bought this keyboard the 1st of November last year, so I've had quite a lot of time to use it, and I'll be giving you my thoughts about it after a year of use. Along the way I'll be giving you some tips and tricks when using this keyboard, and at the very end I'll let you know if this keyboard is practical or not. As always, let's get right on into it. So this is the keyboard from the top. Let's get a couple of dimensions out of the way so we know what space we're working with. From the width, we have just under 6 inches, which is about 15 centimeters. The length of the keyboard is 18.5 inches, which is just about 47 centimeters. Now what's very nice about this keyboard is the height. Now you can't really see this, but on its legs it's about 1/2 inch, which is 2 centimeters, and at the front it's 1/4 inch, which is about 1 centimeter. This keyboard is battery powered, but you can also connect it via USB-C here on the back if you need to charge it or if you want to plug it into your computer. The on-off switch for this keyboard is also here on the back. You just switch it off and it shows red for off, and switch back on for on. Now on the bottom of the keyboard, like most keyboards, you have your feet. So you have feet on both sides, and this allows you for 2 different height adjustments, and they fold away very nicely. Now this keyboard, see if I can get it, this keyboard is very thin, so it also sits very nicely on your desk. The keyboard has a few function keys here at the top, M1, M2, M3, and MR, and these are functions for different settings you can do on the keyboard. These settings you can do in the Logitech G Hub, which is going to be on your computer, or you can use it like I do and just not use that at all. Those apps, you can customize different keys to do different things, like these G keys on the side, and you can also set different keys to do different things. You can also set different color schemes on your keyboard if you want to have that, but keep in mind this only works if your keyboard is directly connected to your computer, or if you're using this Logitech G915 USB wireless connection piece. I find that quite annoying, so this is why I don't typically use this, because I'm typically using this keyboard via Bluetooth. If you are going to be using this USB connector, you press this button up here and it will connect to your computer when this wireless adapter is also connected. If you want to connect via Bluetooth, you'll press this Bluetooth button up here, it'll light up and it'll start connecting to your computer. You connect this as you would any other Bluetooth device. This 4th or 8th button here is for your light settings. This keyboard has 5 different light settings: 100%, 75%, 50%, 25%, and off. Now very important here, depending on how bright you have your keyboard set all the time is going to depend on how long the battery lasts. I typically have the light on 25% because this is enough for me to see the keys, and the battery in this stage lasts quite a long time. Moving on to the far right side, you have a scroll wheel. This one doesn't have any clicks. Some people like that, some people don't. I personally like that it's not clicking. I can just scroll up and down on the page that I'm using, but typically I never use the scroll wheel because I'm using the one on my mouse. You also have play buttons, so you have rewind, play, and pause forward. You also have a mute button here on the side. Jumping back over to the left side, you have G keys, and these can be programmed inside of the Logitech G Hub to do whatever you want them to do. Now if you're going to be using this keyboard like I do and just use it via Bluetooth and not very often via the dongle, and you're not really going to be setting your keys in any color scheme, but you still may want to change the color scheme every now and then, there is a trick that you can do. You can hold down the brightness button and you can press keys 1 through 0. Now what these keys do is it changes the wave pattern across, up, down, left, right, sideways. It changes the colors as well. And lastly, if you do have a wave going, you can use the 2 keys after the 0 to speed up or slow down the wave. So let me demonstrate this for you. Press 1, you'll have a normal wave from left to right. Number 2 is the wave in the opposite direction, so now you see the colors are going from right to left. Number 3 is a wave but from the corners, so from the top left to the bottom right. Number 4 is a wave from bottom to top. Number 5 just cycles through the colors, so all the keys stay the same, no waving, and the colors just cycle through. Number 6 is really neat, but also quite distracting. When you press a key, then it sends out a wave from that key. So you might find this interesting, but if you're typing everywhere, then your keyboard is just going to be going absolutely crazy. Number 7 is a pulsing light, but only blue. So if you want to change this color, you're going to need to connect it to your computer. Now 7, 8, and 9 are all more or less the same. And last but not least, you have the 0 key, which is just one color, which is blue. And then you just have the G up here that's going to be changing colors. Now before, I did tell you that if you use these last 2 keys, it speeds up whatever cycle you're running. So if you're doing one of the wave functions from 1 to 6, it's going to speed it up a lot faster. Let me show you. So this is the normal wave. You can slow it down first by pressing the number just to the right of 0. So I'll press it a few times and then you'll see that it's going quite a bit slower. Now if you can't tell the difference there, let me just speed it all the way up for you. I just press it a lot of times. And now you can see it is just flying through the colors really quickly. Now the one that I find most distracting is this one where if you press it, it goes out. You can say maybe it's a little less distracting if the colors are going a lot faster. So again, let's speed this up all the way to the maximum. Now you can see how much faster these colors really spread out. And again, you can press until it goes really slow, and you can see how slow this goes now. My favorite setting is just the wave left to right, and I always set it to the slowest wave so it's not too distracting for me. Now there is one thing I don't particularly like about this keyboard, and that is when the keys are off. In normal light, sometimes darker light, you don't really see the keys very well. So if you're used to looking down or at one point you lose the key that you're trying to find, it's a little difficult to find it without the backlight on. So this is one negative that I'd like to point out for you. Now another negative I'd like to point out, and I'm not sure if it's only because I have a European keyboard, is that the Shift and the Alt-GR keys are a bit strange to me. What I mean is the Shift key is actually for the symbols on the bottom rather than the keys on the top. In this keyboard, when I press Shift and use this key, it's actually the character that's on the bottom of the key. It's taken me quite a while, and actually I'm still not completely used to this. So for example, on this keyboard, if I look down at the number 3 and I want to use the pound sign, and I press pound, actually it's the star that comes up. And then I have to remember to myself, oh shit, it's the Alt-GR key, and then you use the Alt-GR key for the character that's next to the number. Now it might not be like this in all regions, and something to point out that I find a little bit annoying about this keyboard. So another thing to point out is if you're not a gamer, then you're probably not gonna have any uses for any of these G keys. I personally thought I would be using these G keys at one point, but I've never used them. And it's also because I need to have this connected via this light speed adapter, and I don't use it. Another thing that I have found quite annoying about this keyboard is when I'm using it, it's a little bit wide, but I find myself running into the keyboard quite often with my mouse. I think it's just this extra little bit on the side of the keyboard here, and also these G keys, where typically I would have this little extra space where I wouldn't run into it. And this is my normal sitting posture, so if I'm moving my mouse across my screen, I really am often bumping into this corner. Now a neat feature about mechanical keyboards is if one of these keys pops off or breaks, you can easily replace them. I've never popped one off, so I don't want to try and demonstrate that for you, but there are other videos on YouTube that show how this goes, but you pretty much easily just pop it off and you can pop it back on. If one of these keys breaks or one of your switches in the keyboard breaks, you can also disassemble your keyboard, replace the individual switch, and then you're good to go, rather than having to need to replace the entire keyboard. Now all of my keys are still in very, very good shape. Apparently some keys for some people have been wearing off, but mine are all looking very good. They are a little bit wobbly, so they're not very fixed. You can hear this. It's not the clickiness of the keys, it's just really these keys wobbling back and forth. Now lastly, the reason that I got this, other than the really cool RGB and color schemes that this has, is for the sound of the keyboard. Now this keyboard comes in a couple different mechanical sounds. You have tactile and clicky. Now this one is the tactile one, and this is what it sounds like. It sounds more or less a lot like keyboard with a little extra click to it. Now if you're interested in the clicky one, I don't have an example of that. So there are some other videos on YouTube that show the clicky sound, but unfortunately I can't show you that. So that wraps it up. Turn it around and get my final thoughts on this keyboard. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, I've had this keyboard over a year now, and the price has actually gone up from when I've bought this. So that means this keyboard is still in the new, in the now. That means you don't need to be waiting on a new one, because this is one of the best mechanical keyboards you can get. I bought this for about 180 bucks, and now it's running for closer to 200. I think this is really expensive for a keyboard, but if you love it and you've got to have it, I guess there's really no stopping you from getting it. The positives of this keyboard is it's really nice to use. I really like the feel of it, and the RGB colors are also really nifty. It doesn't really have many special features that I use, so all those features that it does come with I don't really use, so I really just use it as a normal everyday keyboard. There's really only two negatives to this keyboard. One is the price, and two is the size. Like I showed a little bit earlier, my mouse sometimes gets bumped into it, and there's really just not that much space. Maybe I just work narrowly on my desk, but a few times a day I'm bumping into the keyboard, and it's quite annoying. So, do I find this keyboard practical? Absolutely not. It's a keyboard that costs 200 bucks, and it's doing the same thing many other keyboards do. You're just typing on it and clicking it a little bit. But would I buy it again? Absolutely. I really love this keyboard. It's fun to use. I like the sound of it. The colors are really cool. And I just enjoy having the feel of the keyboard. I'll be leaving a link to this keyboard in the description below, so you can check the price in your local area from Amazon. I'm not really going to try to persuade you in one way or another to get this keyboard, because like I said, it is really expensive and not practical. And in the end, it's up to you if you decide you have 200 bucks burning a hole in your wallet and you really need or want this keyboard. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or comments, do leave them in the comment section below. I do get back to everyone that asks a question, so if you leave a question, I will be sure I answer you. If you haven't already, do click that like button if you've enjoyed or gotten any use out of this video. If you want to see more videos like this, do subscribe to the channel. And as always, stay practical, and I'll see you in the next one.